I mean, I think we probably should have stopped before Lando.
Hamilton faced some tough destiny in Austin, and while he's keen to take the positives only from a race that he was even poised to win at a certain point, he feels like his team has played him down with the strategy. After doubting whether or not it was smart to go with the one stopper, Mercedes found themselves in a very tough position, one that Hamilton criticised non-stop during the race and even continued to do so after he finished P2 and was very close to fighting for P1. To add salt to the wounds, Mercedes failed to pass the inspection check, which got Hamilton disqualified from the race and turned all his effort for P2 to ashes. How is this going to affect Hamilton's stance with Mercedes, and what does Wolff have to say about it all? It's safe to say that Mercedes got more than they would have wanted in their first stint on the medium compound tyre, as Hamilton's pace has proven to be very solid, and he joined Norris in the fight for P2 at the 6th lap of the race, completing a successful pass on Leclerc at the end of the long delta just at the apex of turn 12. Be that as it may though, Hamilton made quite a solid difference to Verstappen, and it seemed like there would be a lot to play for. This was the scenario before the Mercedes rivals started to enter the pit lane. With Norris being afraid that Hamilton might undercut him, he gave up his leading position to enter the pits, and that was followed by everybody but Hamilton behind him. But what eventually hurt Hamilton is that Verstappen entered the pit lane earlier than him and anybody else at lap 17, and just before the 7-time world champion entered the pit lane, he was told that even Verstappen is within his pit window now after the Brit successfully made a good margin earlier in the race. This is something that got Hamilton very angry, mostly because his team waited to see whether or not the medium compound tyre could go around 25 to 26 laps, and they could switch to the hard compound tyre in order to risk it all for the one stopper, considering the fact that Verstappen had to enter the pit lane at least once more because in the first one he mounted a new medium compound tyre yet again. But Hamilton's struggles were evident on the old rubber, and he felt like the team made him lose a lot of valuable seconds by putting him out there for a couple of laps, while Norris and Verstappen were able to make up the time lost and much more from it. Elaborating on this, Hamilton was asked as to whether or not he feels like he had it in the car to fight for the win, as the 7-time world champion said, "Yes, I do think we would have been in a position to fight with Max. We made our life a lot harder today than it needed to be. There are lots of areas where we could have been better." But unfortunately, this was not the only mistake that was made by Hamilton's team, as his car failed to pass the inspection of the plank wear, and due to it being worn down excessively, his and Leclerc's cars were disqualified from the race. This enabled Norris to finish P2 and Perez P4, with the Mexican driver now having a stable lead for P2 in the Drivers' Championship with 39 points. Nonetheless, this is not something that Mercedes would want to witness in the remainder of the season, especially now that with the battle with Perez and Ferrari, the team that proved to be much slower than them in Austin has started to now heat up again. But what does Wolff have to say about all this? And more importantly, was the pace of the W14 really boosted by the illegality of the planks? The team principal of Mercedes was not happy with how they messed up the strategy for Hamilton, but having said so, Wolff believes that the team wouldn't have done anything different if they were brought back to point zero. Elaborating on this, Wolff said, "Hindsight is a tough thing because you can say we could have covered Max, we had the quicker car at that stage, but we didn't know. So dragging it out to a one-stop was a valid thing at that stage, but then we lost so much time over 2 laps, and that's what lost us the race. We were on lap 19 or 20 and we needed to extend until 23 to make the one-stop stick. Max stopped for a clear 2-stop strategy, and we knew we just needed 4 more laps with a one-stop. He was 20 seconds behind us, and then the tyre just dropped and we lost the gap." And what is even more painful for Hamilton and his voyage in Austin is the fact that his team admitted that they got it wrong, from the qualification to the sprint shout-out all the way to the main event, as all of the grid did not have enough time in order to set up their cars in the optimum operating window. This is something that Wolff has shared his thoughts on, and although it's very hard for him and his team to throw away 18 valuable points from Hamilton's P2 finish, it's something they were forced to do. As he said, The upgrade seems to have made the car happier in those areas, and it is working well. Directionally, it's a very good sign. Turning to the race result and the disqualification, setup choices on a sprint weekend are always a challenge, and just 1 hour of free practice, and even more so at a bumpy circuit like COTA and running a new package. In the end, all of that doesn't matter. Others got it right where we got it wrong, and there's no wiggle room in the rules. We need to take it on the chin, do the learning, and come back stronger next weekend. It has been commonly known that in order to beat Verstappen in 2023, you need to try out risky strategies, and I don't think anybody should blame Mercedes for trying out the one-stopper in Austin. After all, Russell was very positive when he was asked the same question that Hamilton got. Do you think you can put 5 more laps on with this tyre? And the answer of Russell was plain and simple: yes. We know for a fact that he's a bit optimistic when it comes to the tyre degradation, but Hamilton lost so much time in the matter of 2 laps, and although that doesn't really matter considering the fact that he would have been disqualified anyway due to the plank wear, it provides a lot of ground to think about in the upcoming races as well as the upcoming season, when things are supposed to get more chippy between Verstappen and his rivals. But even Horner feels like Mercedes made their lives much harder than they should have, especially with how Verstappen has been struggling under braking and how Hamilton got so close in the end but ran out of laps to try and pass his 2021 nemesis. Elaborating on this, the team principal of Red Bull said, "I think Mercedes found themselves in no man's land today. They sort of attempted a one-stop, aborted, and then took the better tyre, the medium tyre, for the final stint. But thankfully, we had just enough to hold them off." When the news of Hamilton being disqualified echoed in the F1 paddock, many started to connect this with the revised floor of his and Russell's cars, wondering whether Mercedes' best bid was to push with an illegal car in order to put pressure on Verstappen. But according to the Silver Arrows, this is not the case, and the upgrades on the floor have nothing to do with how the car operated, as they put it all on the circuit's layout and the bumpiness of COTA that made the plank wear much more than it should have. Talking about this, Hamilton was still very happy with the pace that the W14 provided and has encouraged the F1 fans that we're going to see a lot more of this from Mercedes. As he said, "It is of course disappointing to be disqualified post-race, but that doesn't take away from the progress we've made this weekend. We had good pace and I was feeling great in the car. It was tough racing those around me as they were so quick, but we can be happy with many things. I feel positive as we're moving forward, even if reflecting on it, we could have possibly won." No question about it, Mercedes are looking dangerous with their new floor, and while many F1 critics would immediately point to the fact that the car was illegal, we must not forget that with the same car, Russell has struggled a bit in the back end and was not able to make quite the strides as his teammate Hamilton. But there is only one way that we will be assured whether or not this sudden surge of performance was all about the upgrades, and that's to wait for Mexico and see whether the car will struggle there as well. What do you think about Mercedes' botched strategy and Hamilton's disqualification? Let us know in the comments below.